Saludos amigos de tampahoy.com, estamos aquí en vivo conectándonos porque en cuestión de minutos el gobernador de Florida, Ron DeSantis, y su gabinete ofrecerán una conferencia de prensa en el centro de detención de inmigrantes Deportation Depot en nuestro estado de Florida. Así que manténgase conectado con nosotros en tampahoy.com, donde vamos a tener esta conferencia de prensa en vivo en cuestión de minutos.
Break room, which is nice. Most of the time they're eating lunch on the go or in their car. But if they have a few minutes, they can come in here and have lunch in here. But then we also have our outdoor seating as well. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is
Amigos de tampahoy.com, estamos viendo en vivo un recorrido que están haciendo por el nuevo centro de la oficina del alguacil del condado Polk, que en el día de hoy se realizó su inauguración. Y en cuestión de minutos vamos a ver al gobernador Ron DeSantis hablando desde el Deportation Depot, que tenemos las imágenes en vivo en el lado izquierdo de nuestra pantalla, y en el lado derecho tenemos el recorrido de la nueva oficina del alguacil del condado Polk. Esta vez completamente en vivo estamos viendo todo lo que está disponible en este nuevo centro que va a estar brindando servicio a los residentes del condado Polk a partir del día de hoy, y que ya en el día de hoy se hizo su inauguración oficialmente frente a decenas de personas en dicho condado. Así que esto está ubicado justamente en la ciudad de Davenport. Y aquí estamos viendo en vivo el momento en el que un oficial está dándonos un recorrido en vivo a través de tampahoy.com para que ustedes vean qué es lo que se puede encontrar en esta localidad, en este nuevo centro de servicios que el condado Polk inauguró en el día de hoy para la ciudad. También para todas las ciudades de dicho condado. Así que vamos a seguir viendo estas imágenes en vivo a través de tampahoy.com mientras esperamos la llegada del gobernador Ron DeSantis, que va a estar platicando desde el Deportation Depot junto a funcionarios del estado de Florida. Mi nombre es José Ángel Acevedo y sigo aquí con ustedes conectados durante todo el día. Nos vemos en tampahoy.com.
So we do have holding cells here. Obviously, we want to take any of their arrestees down to our main jail, but there are times that the detectives might need to talk to them, or there's a reason that we need to house them here before they go down to booking. Here is where we would house them. And we do have two separate areas because obviously if there's a juvenile here or a female,
Well, good morning. It's great to be back at Baker Correctional Institution. Before I get into the subject of today, I just want to make a comment. For many, many years, we've seen the country of Venezuela suffering under the yoke of Marxist ideology, first with Hugo Chavez and then with Nicolas Maduro. And we've had a lot of people in the state of Florida that have firsthand knowledge of that. There's people that have fled to the United States. We have a big community in South Florida, and you will be hard-pressed to find a reign as destructive as the Chavez-Maduro reign has been, taking a country that had been prosperous, that has an abundance of resources, and basically destroying it, making it so that it's miserable, repressed, and now one of the poorest countries. And so Maduro was indicted, and he is the head of a drug cartel, and he was releasing people from his prisons and sending them to our southern border under the Biden administration. And so that operation that was successful, he deserves to be brought to justice. And my sincere hope is that the people of Venezuela are going to be able to liberate themselves from the yoke of the Chavez-Maduro reign, because it has been one of the most destructive reigns of any in the Western Hemisphere's history. With me here today, our State Board of Immigration Enforcement Executive Director Anthony Coker, Attorney General James Uthmeyer, Commissioner Wilton Simpson, Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingolia, Dave Kerner, Highway Safety Motor Vehicle, and Mark Glass, FDLE. We also have Kevin Guthrie, Division of Emergency Management. You know, it's a good year when you don't see as much of him in the summertime. And I think we're all very happy. I like him. He does a good job, but I really don't want to be spending hours on end with him during hurricane season. It's much better when you don't have one. And so we're thankful that that happened. And, you know, we knew kind of as you got into like the end of October, most likely, but I'd never say anything because the minute I say something, then they're there. But now we can say, you know, we got through that very well. But of course, he's also has been spearheading the logistics involved with our immigration enforcement efforts. We also have Reps Michael and Brannon, and I want to thank them for what they've done. Now, this isn't our first time here at Baker Correctional Institute. When we opened the Deportation Depot, we did an event. We talked about how that was going to be a force multiplier for federal immigration enforcement efforts. We also did one in southern Florida at the Alligator Alcatraz site, and it's the same theory. When we started last year, we had President Trump coming back into office with a pledge to enforce immigration laws, secure the border. People here illegally would be returned to their home country. But we knew that they were not going to be able to do that successfully without support from state and local law enforcement. It just doesn't work. They didn't have enough people. I know they've got more money now. But they didn't at the time. So I pushed very hard at a special session of the legislature to be able to get the tools so that Florida would be leading the way. And we were the first state to act legislatively. We were the first state to do these 287G agreements with the Department of Homeland Security. And we're the first, and I think still only state, that requires state and local law enforcement in the state to participate and assist DHS's immigration enforcement efforts. And so today, so as part of those relationships, in April of 2025, the state of Florida joined with the Department of Homeland Security to establish Operation Tidal Wave. And it was state efforts to be a force multiplier to assist with the identification, apprehension, and then the feds would return the illegal aliens back to their home country. So today, I can announce that Operation Tidal Wave is now hit over 10,000 arrests of illegal aliens who have been turned over to the Department of Homeland Security. Of those, 63% had criminal arrests or convictions, including violent offenders and sex offenders, although you don't have to have committed a crime to be subject to immigration enforcement. If you've come illegally, that is the offense. And so, of course, people can enforce the law. But it does show that some of these folks have been involved in a lot of really, really bad stuff. So there's no other state that has been able to do anything approaching what the state of Florida has been able to do. And Operation Tidal Wave's over 10,000. But then if you look at the other efforts of the counties combined, we're close to 20,000 arrests that have occurred just in the last year, and actually less than the last year, because the Trump administration didn't come in until January 20th. We didn't get our legislation passed until sometime in February because the initial one was not a good legislation. So we insisted on good. We got that, I think, in February, and then we had to spin up the 287G and do that. So there was a little bit of things that we had to do to get us there. So those are really, really big numbers. And there's not another state in the country that is even close in terms of this level of participation. So we've led. It's been very effective. This Deportation Depot, they have flights going out. They've had a bunch of flights. They have flights going out of Alligator Alcatraz. The tempo has picked up. We now, at each one of those facilities, the federal government has stationed an immigration judge at both Baker and those and Alligator Alcatraz. Now, these aren't Article 3 judges. They're not real judges. They're executive branch employees whose function is to serve to adjudicate immigration claims. Now, the problem that the federal government has is a lot of these people have been told, come across the border illegally, then claim asylum. So these are, 90-some% are bogus asylum claims, and that attaches a certain amount of process. Congress should really clean that up. I don't know why Congress would allow that to be abused the way it's been abused, but it's been abused very, very badly. So they have this. They got to navigate this. So you now have one here. You have one in South Florida, and that's been able to speed up the process. And our goal is, we want people here as little as possible. And the goal is not to create a long-term facility, and that's not the function. The function is they don't have enough bed space at DHS in Florida. And honestly, they have very little in Florida compared to other states. It's pretty incredible per capita how little. And I know they're trying to expand it. But our function is, rather than release folks on the street, that will have an ability, they can be processed, and then the law can be enforced. And we're going to continue to be supportive of that. Now, I also hope that eventually we won't need a deportation depot, right? Because, if the feds could handle this by themselves and they had enough space to do it, then fine, we'll still help. But I would love for them to have more space to be able to do it. So, but what we've done has been effective. What we've done has made a big impact. And if other states were doing even a fraction of what Florida was doing, the national efforts would be all that much more stronger. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved. Now, we have our cabinet here, and they put something in the legislation to create this immigration board. You're going to hear from Anthony. And, I didn't think it was necessary, and I don't think it's necessary. But I think the reason they did it is because they wanted there to be someone in cabinet could throw sand in the gears maybe and make it more difficult. And nothing has been further from the truth. Everybody on the cabinet has worked very hard to make sure that Florida was leading the way on this. And I'm proud that we've been able to do that. We've got folks that are now overseeing there. We had Larry Keefe, who did a really good job. We have Kevin with Department of Emergency Management helping with the logistics. FDLE and Highway Patrol have done great work on this, both in tidal wave and then also in other parts of that. Just think about it. You're on the highway. You have somebody that's here illegally, doesn't have a valid license, because you don't get a license in Florida if you're here illegally. You're not eligible. Doesn't have license, doesn't have insurance, and is out there driving drunk. To just put them back on the street like Biden was doing, How is that keeping the people of Florida safe? So now Highway Patrol, they're working like clockwork to be able to make sure that we have accountability there. So they've done a really good job. We also have had people, even in like more non-law enforcement agencies, like the Department of Lottery, they have 287G agreements. I mean, it's pretty incredible that we've really gone that extensive and that deep. We also have a number of sheriffs throughout the state. Now, all 67 counties have 287G agreements. I would say the zealousness in enforcement is not uniform across 67 counties. And I know the Attorney General monitors that. And if he's able to identify where people are breaching duties, that could end up on my desk, and that could require some action or give me the ability to do some action. But we've had some that have done a really, really good job, and so I want to recognize them. Same thing with the police departments. We've had some that have done really well. You know, we have some that are not violating the law, but they're not doing as much as they should be doing, and that's just a question of really political leadership. You have some people that get elected and they know they can't cross the line and frustrate, so they know they have certain duties, and so they try to do that as minimal as possible. We're watching all this. You know, we're watching politicians say they're going to tear up 287G agreements. They're not going to cooperate. Well, you know, you have the freedom to make those judgments, but we also have the responsibility to make sure that the law's enforced. So, but we have had great support from local overall for both the county and the city level, and that's why you see the numbers that you see today. So, you know, there's so many times that people do different things. You'll see these politicians in Washington all the time, the congressmen, they'll put out press releases, but nothing ever happens, right? And so, you know, we fought hard on this. It was obviously a salient issue in the 2024 election because our border was wide open. And you saw a lot of problems, and, you know, Cayenne can speak from experience, having lost a son to an illegal alien crime, and this really does impact a lot of people's communities. So it was a pressing issue, but at the same time, it's like, okay, make us stink about it, talk about it, and then what? Nothing gets done. That's not how we roll here in Florida. When we set out to do something, you know, we're going to make sure that we're going to be able to deliver results on that. And so these are great results. I think they're going to get even better going forward because I think DHS is in a better posture. And I think that they have more resources now, and I think it's going to be more effective. Final thing I'll say is, you know, these numbers are what they are. This does not include, if the federal government is just doing something on their own since they have primary responsibility, we're not including that in these numbers. And so they've obviously done things on their own. We're also not including self-deportations. And we know just from the Florida's program where you can get a plane ticket, we've had about 1,000 people that have voluntarily returned for their home country. That's just through our program. I think it's more when you count people that did it on their own, way more, or in conjunction with the federal government. So there's a whole host of things that are going on here, but these are real metrics. This is real progress, and I think you're going to see the momentum continue going forward. So thanks to everybody who's going to be involved. All right, we're going to hear from some of the speakers, so we'll start with Anthony.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you all for being here today. As the Governor just said, today marks a significant milestone for Florida 287G law enforcement. This has not been an easy task. It's taken many months to get this operational, to get where we are today. So I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about kind of the steps that have been taken to get to this point. I said this in the last press conference, but every state agency in Florida has made a 287G task force arrest. I think it's unprecedented, number one, but it also speaks to the leadership of our cabinet and our governor really leading the way on immigration, and the state directors that are buying into it. It's been amazing. I also want to thank, as the governor just said, we have some of the best sheriffs and police chiefs in the state of Florida, and they've been instrumental in this success, so definitely a thank you to them. Our state agency directors have also been amazing. As of right now, a lot of them are doing self-initiated immigration operations and also being on standby for any federal assistance and any operations that the federal government requires. So our state agency directors have really done a tremendous job. as the governor also said, Director Guthrie with Division of Emergency Management, just a tremendous partner for the federal government. DEM has been really able to help out with detention and logistics and transportation, as that the federal government over the last 9-10 months have been trying to build up their infrastructure to get to the point where their operations could sustain. But in the meantime, DEM has been a tremendous partner. Also in Florida, I think what we've done differently is every state agency director and a lot of the sheriffs, we built personal relationships with our federal partners, which is truly amazing. Coming from the feds before, there wasn't much cooperation with state and local law enforcement with the federal government. And over the last 9-10 months, that's significantly changed. So we have great operational coordination with our federal partners. Also, I really want to thank the Florida State Immigration Council that's comprised of 8 of our great law enforcement leaders in the state of Florida. They've just been tremendous, especially helping us make sure we're staying on track with data tracking and making sure we're staying in line. I want to take a minute to acknowledge each of the cabinet members who have just been instrumental in this immigration field. Is they've all leaned into this significantly. Attorney General Uthmeyer and his team with the Office of Statewide Prosecution, they've gone above and beyond to make sure that criminal aliens living in our great state are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Colonel Adams with the Florida Department of Agricultural Law Enforcement, under the direction of Commissioner Simpson, have doubled down at agriculture checkpoints to ensure that our highways are remaining safe from illegal aliens who have out-of-state licenses, and in many circumstances, they're fraudulent licenses, and those licenses are not honored here in Florida. And last but not least, Chief Financial Officer Blazin Golia and his team with the Department of Financial Services are aggressively investigating the abuse of Florida's workers' compensation fraud, which has been prevalent in the migrant communities. So our cabinet is really doing a tremendous job. And last but not least, none of this would be possible without the leadership and decisive leadership and boldness from Governor DeSantis. From day one of President Trump's inauguration, Governor DeSantis vowed to be the best strategic partner with the federal government through the 287G program. Before I was the ICE liaison, I was in ICE headquarters for 4 months, and for 4 months, all we did was work on Florida 287G. So when Governor DeSantis says that we were the first state, he was not kidding. I dedicated 7 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day just on the state of Florida. That's how many law enforcement agencies were submitting for 287G training. So in closing, Governor DeSantis, thank you for your bold and unrelenting leadership to restore our nation's sovereignty and empower our great law enforcement in Florida with the tools that they need to keep our communities safer. The Florida blueprint of immigration enforcement has been widely recognized as being the gold standard of state-level immigration enforcement. And as we begin 2026, we're excited for the opportunity to partner with other states and have them see as much success as we have. Thank you.
It's an honor as Attorney General to support Florida's law enforcement, FDLE, FHP, our great sheriffs. They've really, taken on a leadership role. And we have proven again that we are a state that enforces rule of law. Under the leadership of President Trump and Governor DeSantis, we are leading the country in immigration enforcement. And our Office of Attorney General has had a record year when it comes to arrests and convictions. We've been a part of over 1,200 child predator arrests. And I want to point something out. A couple hundred of these are people that are illegally in the country. People preying upon and abusing little kids that are illegal immigrants that have no business being here in the first place. Our office has been a part of almost 400 convictions this past year, supporting thousands of others with the local prosecutors across the state. We brought charges and convictions in regard to illegal immigrants ranging from murder, attempted murder, sexual abuse of children, human trafficking, and you name it. Florida's crime rate is at a record low, and it continues to go lower. And shutting down the border is a major part of that. Leftist countries like Venezuela used to send some of their worst criminal offenders into this state. That's not happening anymore. We are enforcing the law. We are detaining illegal immigrants, and we are getting them back to where they came from, unless they have been charged and not yet convicted with serious criminal charges in this state. And at that point, they need to serve their time here in the state before they're ultimately sent back where they came from. So we're going to keep bringing the heat. If you're an illegal immigrant, you probably do not want to be in Florida. I think this lineup, this great team shows we enforce the law. We take that seriously, and we're going to continue to be the safest state to raise a family in the country. Thanks. Well,
thank you. And I'd like to thank Governor DeSantis and President Trump for their leadership. We've clearly had amazing support at the federal level since President Trump took over, and Governor DeSantis has been an amazing partner in all of these areas for the last 7 years. At the Department of Agriculture, we're about three things. We say all the time: bugs, drugs, and thugs. All of our officers are 287G certified. Colonel Adams has done an amazing job with training, with outfitting. We want to thank the legislature and the governor for their help in making sure we had all the resources and tools that we need to do our job with. And just a few of the things I'd mentioned about ag law, because ag law doesn't get a lot of attention in these efforts. In the last few years, we've recovered over 400 stolen semi-trailers. We've broken up several major fuel theft rings around the state of Florida with tens of millions of dollars on a monthly basis. We've recovered or stopped the thefts. We've broken up major retail organizations, retail crimes, and all of those had illegals in all of those efforts. We've removed hundreds of illegals through our interdiction stations and other missions around the state. We're putting a new station in, and I'd like to thank the governor and the legislature at 231. We have a major hole in the northern border. DOT's been working with us very closely to get that facility up and running before the end of the year. Thanks to the legislature and the governor, we have the resources to be able to do that now. That's going to be another major checkpoint as you come into the state of Florida. We're going to continue to strengthen our support of the northern border. But at Ag Law, we know that we are a force multiplier. The retail theft we're breaking up, the fuel thefts we're breaking up, the stolen vehicles, the human trafficking, the illegals that we are catching, not only illegals, but just bad folks, is making a big difference. We work very closely with our local sheriffs and police departments all over this state. We're very proud to partner with them, and we're looking forward to a very successful 2026 and continue supporting the president's policies and the governor's policies here in Florida.
Blaze.
Good morning, everyone. Blaze Ngolia, Chief Financial Officer of the great state of Florida. Look, illegal immigration and the problems with illegal immigration has been plaguing this country for the better part of 50 years. Back then, we probably had a couple of 100,000 illegal immigrants come across and settle in the United States. Fast forward to today, the pre-second Trump presidency, our best guess is anywhere between 18 to 21 million illegal immigrants settling in this country. Now, the previous president had a de facto open borders policy and created such a problem that was so large, people were actually starting to wonder how we were ever going to fix this. And the questions that were going on in the mainstream media were, the question was, well, what is your plan? Are you going to deport all 21 illegal immigrants that are settled here in the United States? But the media and open border apologists did not count on three things. One, President Donald Trump and the leadership of President Donald Trump to take serious and understand the enormity of the problem and that it has to be fixed, and we should have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to illegal immigration. The second is the great state of Florida led by Ron DeSantis, because he knew that you could not solve this problem with state cooperations, because quite frankly, the federal government does not have the manpower, it does not have the reach in order to reach into the communities and deport criminal illegal aliens out of our communities. The third is the people of the United States. You cannot govern without the consent of the governed, and it has been clear after election and after election that the people of the United States, and more specifically the people of the great state of Florida, will not stand for criminal illegal aliens settling into our communities. So that is why the state of Florida has led on this issue even before President Trump took office, the second part. And we put forth legislation over the years saying that that you cannot be a sanctuary, have sanctuary policies if you are in the state of Florida. Any government cannot do that. I helped co-author Senate Bill 1718, which created deterrence. But deterrence is the big thing that we're talking about. President Trump is a deterrent. Ron DeSantis is a deterrent. The State Immigration Enforcement Board is a deterrent. Illegal immigrants, especially those who are coming to Florida to commit crimes, need to think twice about coming into this country and into the state, because we take this stuff seriously. All hands on deck, every agency. Look, I had the Department of Financial Services. You normally don't think that this is something that we are involved in, but we have specifically made dozens and dozens of arrests of illegal immigrants that we found committing insurance fraud and workers' comp fraud. This is a serious issue that continues to need serious attention. And just by the fact here that we are here today talking about the enormity of our problem solving and the amount of people, illegal immigrants, that we are expelling from this state and this country goes to show you that once again, Florida is leading. Look, and it's not just the deportations that are happening in conjunction with DHS and ICE. It's also the people that are starting to realize that, look, the state of Florida and the United States in itself is getting serious about this. We need to self-deport. Our best guess is upwards to 1.9 million illegal immigrants have self-deported. Some of them have taken advantage of state programs. Some of them have taken advantage of federal programs. But they all have one thing in common. They are afraid of being ensnarled and within the legal process here in the state of Florida, because they know if they get caught in the state of Florida, they will return home. I appreciate the governor's leadership. I appreciate President Trump's leadership on the issue, and I appreciate law enforcement and our sheriffs who are boots on the ground every day, keeping our community safe, because they know where the illegal immigrants are committing these crimes, and they're the first ones to step up and say that we will partner with the state and the federal government under the 287G program, and we will tackle the enormity of this problem. Thank you guys for being here today.
Dave?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, members of the Cabinet. My name is Dave Kerner. In my capacity as Executive Director of the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, I have the privilege on behalf of the Governor and the Cabinet to be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Department, to include the Florida Highway Patrol and its nearly 2,000 sworn state troopers that are 287G certified. As of 7 o'clock this morning, we've had 7,674 apprehensions and arrests by state troopers for immigration violations that have been turned over to ICE, Border Patrol, and the Department of Homeland Security. Our unified enforcement model includes the ongoing embedding of federal resources into our operations, such that we can apprehend and locate UDA, and within 2 hours of that apprehension, they can be already here at the Deportation Depot or Alligator Alcatraz or Chrome, and that process is now very quick and very efficient. The governor talked about that, yes, some of the people that we encounter and apprehend are just here illegally. They haven't committed another crime beyond that, but there's also a very strong narrative out there that everybody that we apprehend are just here on a visa overstay or cross the border illegally and did not self-deport. And I want to read from just some of the quick notes that I discovered in our updated emails that we get as leadership at the Florida Highway Patrol. Here's one from Pompano Beach. While assigned to FHP Immigration Enforcement Operation, trooper apprehended a UDA with a significant criminal history dating back 32 years. The Bahamian was arrested for robbery with a firearm, aggravated assault with a firearm, resisting arrest with violence, escape and robbery with a weapon, dealing in stolen property. In Miami-Dade County just last week, during an immigration enforcement, state troopers apprehended a 52-year-old Cuban national with significant criminal history dating back 45 years in this country, including homicide in the second degree, kidnapping, robbery with a firearm and a deadly weapon, armed invasion. In Tallahassee, a traffic stop was conducted on I-10 westbound at the 218-mile marker. State troopers initiated a pursuit. As the occupants resisted, the pursuit continued westbound, reaching speeds of 130 miles an hour. As they approached traffic, the suspect exited the interstate, struck a mailbox, and was apprehended. An infant was found in the back of the vehicle and taken into the care of the state of Florida. In Palm Beach County, members of Troop L, assigned to immigration enforcement, apprehended a suspect wanted out of Brazil for sexual battery of a minor. And finally, in Orlando, troopers responded to an incident of indecent exposure at a local Wawa gas station. At the conclusion of the investigation, was determined that the suspect was a legal permanent resident from Mexico and had active warrants out of Orange County. He was placed under arrest, and FHP worked with Border Patrol to start the process to revoke his lawful permanent residence, and we will continue to take those proactive efforts. We have hit nearly 20,000 arrests in the state of Florida alone, the governor and the cabinet. I mean, I just followed some of the finest elected leaders in the state of Florida. There's not much that I can add to that, except that beyond the significance of 20,000 arrests in just under a year, really 6 months, if you look at the uptake in terms of becoming efficient and effective at this effort, what's the point beyond the 20,000? And it's very clear and it's very simple. During the last presidential administration, there was what I consider to be the most extreme abuse of executive authority, where people detrimentally relied on the representations of a president that abused his authority and opened the borders. How do we combat that? How do we fix it? How do we heal this country and maintain our sovereign status as the United States of America? Well, that 20,000 arrest represents that it can be done. The state of Florida, under the governor and this cabinet, has done that. We have shown that the model works. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. Is it combative? It's very combative. I can count at least 10 troopers that have been injured as a result of immigration enforcement operations, and seriously injured. But the point is it can be done. And if other states were to join the efforts of the state of Florida and our federal government, we really can fix the problem that was started several years ago and heal this country and maintain our sovereignty. And so I would encourage other leaders in other states to follow the lead of Governor DeSantis, follow the lead of President Trump, and get into action and assist us in this very important effort. Governor, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mark Glass. I'm the FDLE commissioner. I just want to tell you right here is the dream team. If you work for these gentlemen here, you are a part of the dream team, because with Governor DeSantis and the cabinet that's here, I will tell you that they do not put up with crap. And I'm just going to say that to you. Let's lean forward. Let's get things done, and let's protect our great state. We're not called the free state of Florida for nothing. We're the free state of Florida because the brain power that's behind me gives me the authority to go out and do the job that needs to be done. At FDLE, your special agents are going after the worst of the worst. We are going after the sex preds, the sex offenders, the career offenders. And the career offenders, we're not just talking about the ones who shoplift every so often and they get in trouble with the law. We're talking about the ones that do robbery and all the other battery, all the other stuff that you don't hear about or you hear about in your neighborhoods, and we're the ones going after them. With that, with illegal immigration, we're checking the database for career offenders and sex offender and sex predators and child molesters, and we're going after those. They've already had their due process. They've already gone through the court system. They've already done everything. We've already got over 230 of these individuals out of our country. They're not in your neighborhoods conducting havoc with your children and people in your community. We did that through the Office of Statewide Prosecution with Attorney General Uthmeyer. His team has been phenomenal when it comes to that. In addition, we're out there right now with the federal government doing unaccompanied minors, unaccompanied children. You've heard the President Trump talk about all the children that were missing. He wasn't kidding. They were missing. Our federal government in the last administration allowed children to come all through this state. And I will tell you, over here in Jacksonville, we tracked and we followed trucks and we followed planes flying in of all these kids coming in and out. And the non-governmental organization, we were trying to ask where are they going so we can make sure that these kids get the stuff they need and the schools are ready and the communities they're going to. And we were told it's none of our business. Now, you do that over 4 years, you do get those high numbers he's talking about. The president was not exaggerating on that one. As of now, we started that operation working with ICE, and we already found 144. One is about human labor trafficking, which DCF has with them now trying to get the services they need. Our partners with DCF is amazing. The secretary there and the things that they do is God's work. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But what we can't do is let our children continue to be victimized, and to include children that are here unaccompanied. We cannot let them get victimized. So we're continuing on with this mission set and trying to find these kids. And again, career offenders, you're next. You're up on the next on the docket list. We're going to be looking for you and coming after you. If you're illegal, I'd suggest you do CBP home. We've already done over 900 of those, trying to get them out of the country. Volunteer yourself. We got money to get you out of here. Go back to your home state. We're not going to put up with this anymore. I cannot stand it. I know these gentlemen here behind me cannot stand it. We're not going to take it. So another thing to be paying attention to. What we're doing is leading the nation. Governor DeSantis and the cabinet has led the nation in this over and over again. I'm telling you, the federal government, the leaders, DEA administrator, all of them, they all called me and they've told me that we are doing such a great job. ICE, everybody. Anthony, coming on board, coming from the ICE, he understands the dilemma and the issues that we're dealing with. 287G was a happening program back in the day. FDLE has always been a part of that. And then several presidents ago, President Obama started killing the program. Therefore, we were not getting the intelligence we needed to help be a force multiplier for immigration enforcement. I'm also your chief domestic security officer. Those who came across that border are not just here people looking for work. There are people come from host nations looking to do bad acts. And we had to stay on top of that the whole time. The amount of stuff these troopers are picking up off the side of the road and our agents are out there getting it, and the agriculture officers are out there working it, we're able to debrief them now with 287G capability. We're able to see where they're coming from, what type of organizations they're part of. The Governor's SAFE Act, with fentanyl eradication, we've been able to put more people behind bars and not only just get your local drug dealers, we've been able to go up chain on that to get into the cartel. So that's the kind of stuff we're doing, and that is also being done by these illegals. So as your commissioner of Florida Department of Law Enforcement, as the one here working for the Cabinet State Board of Immigration and the Cabinet and the Governor, I want to say thank you for your support. Continue on to lean into this because, Governor, your leadership has been amazing, and I want to say thank you.
Okay, well, it's been great to see everyone work so hard at this. Seeing the results is really meaningful, and we've got good momentum. I think we're working very well with the federal government, and we're going to continue to put points on the board. I do want to just say, because I don't know if I'm going to be back up in Northeast Florida before the weekend, but, you know, Jaguars had a great season. I mean, it was really impressive to see what happened. You know, I was thinking the Bucks, like, you know, they were like, started 5-6-1. They look really good. I mean, what a terrible second half. And I think the Jags are playing as good as anyone. It's been really exciting to see that turnaround. I know people up here are going to be very excited to see what happens in the playoffs. But I'll just tell you, I know there's a couple other teams that are better, but I wouldn't want to have to play them if I were one of these other teams. I think they're very dangerous. And then we also have on Thursday night, one of our teams from Florida in the college semifinal. You know, we've never had a team in the entire state of Florida win a game in the college football playoff until Miami Hurricanes were able to win against Texas A&M, and then they beat Ohio State. So they're in a situation where if they win against Ole Miss, then they get a home game for the national championship at Hard Rock Stadium the following week. So, you know, that's pretty, that'd be pretty big for the state to be able to see. You know, it used to be the Florida schools would be in the top 5, even the 3 of them, certainly top 10 every year. And it's been a little bit thinner, I would say, in the last decade or so. And so Miami, you know, maybe they're the first one to kind of get back, and we'll see what happens with our state universities going forward. But should be fun over these next couple of weeks to watch some of these teams play. Okay, do we have any questions? Yes. Yeah, so look, we DHS didn't have capacity. We've stepped in. It's obviously been a force multiplier. They've been able to do a lot more as a result of what we've done. But, you know, if they expand their own capacity, then that's going to be the first place they're going to turn to, right? Because, like, these are support. We don't choose who comes in. It's DHS chooses who gets sent to these places. So if they have their own places to do it, great. Like, you know, we're not trying to get like headlines in this. Like, it's fine. If they have what they need, then we won't have to do. But it's clearly temporary. How temporary will depend on the pace that they have in terms of doing the expansion. But obviously, we would anticipate, at some point they're going to up their own capacity. I know. I talked to Tom Homan; he wants to do that for sure. But they're very thankful that we're doing what we're doing now. Okay, so I think we're going to end up doing, I think we're going to call it a panhandle pokey in Northwest Florida. So that's being done. We can go live on that probably relatively soon, right, Kevin? Yeah. So it's basically, we do this, DHS approves it, and then they obviously reimburse it. This has been waiting, I guess, at the DHS leadership level for approval. So if they approve, we'll open. If they don't, then obviously, we'll stand by, and that's fine. I think it should be approved because I don't think that they're where they need to be on deep detention space. But we're happy to go either way. So that is ready. We also have another option potentially in southern Florida that would kind of be the same thing. DHS have to approve. But we want to use some of the good thing about this facility is that this required very little to get it ready, right? Alligator Alcatraz, you had the airstrip, which is, saved a lot of time to be able to fly right out. But, you had to build temporary stuff there, which was fine. But when you start talking about a brick and mortar facility, if you have to go in and put a lot of work because it's been mothballed, that could be expensive. And we're not really looking to do that, right? I mean, we're looking to help. We're getting reimbursed on this. I know there's a lot of people when I first said we're doing, how are you going to get? I was like, we're going to get reimbursed, and now they acknowledge that. And it also saves money for Florida because less money on health care for people showing up to the emergency room, less money in schools for people who aren't authorized to be here, but the Supreme Court says they have to be able to go, less money on law enforcement in terms of the costs that they have to put out to police stuff. So there's definitely savings for the state of Florida on that.
Governor,
what's that? We've got a number of options, so we're working through some of those. It's there's just different currents that you got to navigate, and we want to make sure we got something that makes sense. And even financially, even though we're getting reimbursed, I still feel like we don't want to do something that is not going to make financial sense even to get a reimbursement for. And so if there's a facility that we got to, they say, yeah, you could have 1,500 beds here, but you got to put in $25 million or $50 million to get it ready. I don't know that that's something, even if we got reimbursed, I'm not sure that that's something we would necessarily want to do. We like this because it was easy. We like the alligator because it's temporary stuff. That is not definitely a permanent facility. This is a permanent facility, even though it's not going to be permanent for this mission, but this is something that can be used for other things. So that's some of the things that we have to navigate.
Governor, with Deportation Depot, do we have any updated numbers on how many deportations, number of detainees, or any plans to expand or anything like that?
Where are we at on how many flights have come out of here?
So out of this facility, we've had 93 flights go out of this facility for roughly...
And we've been, 4 months?
4 months or so.
Yeah, so there's been 93 deportation flights. I mean, that's probably close to 1,000. 2,926. So, wow, that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I think Kevin has talked to some other states, but the issue is it's easier said than done. We have, I mean, remember, emergency management. Our bread and butter is hurricane response, and we've worked very hard on that. And obviously, I don't think anyone would say that another state does that better than us. I mean, we do it good. It's not just us at the state. We've got a lot of good people in local do it. But that logistical know-how has been applied in other avenues. So remember, you guys remember a few years ago, you remember this, you had a Delta outbreak in Jacksonville for the coronavirus. And a lot of these people, honestly, had taken the mRNA shot, but they had it. And like the hospitals started getting all these people. So we did the monoclonal antibodies. No one was using them really. I mean, they're very rare. And so I got all these monoclonals And it was Kevin and his team. They would set up, and then we'd have our health people, and then we would do it. And we got a lot of people through in Jacksonville. And to this day, I will have people come up to me thanking me for that we had that, because it really did work to help it. So we've been able to do it in that. We've been able to do it in rescue missions. I mean, they just had the Jamaica hurricane. You know, we had people stranded, so we went and got them. We've got them from Israel, Haiti, all these other things. So that's kind of another wrinkle that we've added into that. So now we're now doing it in the processing and detention space to be able to assist DHS, and they're doing it really well. But, you know, the reality is not every state has that kind of capacity and know-how to be able to logistically make this stuff happen the way the state of Florida does. And, you know, it's Kevin obviously leading those logistical efforts, but then all of our agencies just having dealt with emergencies and hurricanes and all this stuff, you know, they know how to get things done and do it. So I'm not going to name states, because then they say, oh, why did you talk to Florida and you didn't do it? I don't want to put anyone in hot water. But yes, people have asked what you're doing. I think that there's definitely a lot of capacity for some of these states to do more. Certainly in some like-minded states. And so we'll just have to see what they're able to do. So, right. So the only for sure basis to do an immigration arrest is if the person does not have a right to be here, right? I mean, that's the threshold question. You know, if you have a criminal record, but you're a U.S. citizen, you're not a part of immigration, right? So that's the threshold. And again, you don't have to have been convicted of a crime to be subject to immigration enforcement. To say that would be the case would be absurd. You're giving people a license to come in the country illegally until you commit a serious crime. No, we want to prevent the serious crimes from happening. But 63% of the tidal wave arrests already had either criminal arrest or convictions, and it's various crimes. You do have some violent. You have DUIs, you have gang, you have sex offense. Some are fugitives from justice, others another type of public safety threats. So the vast majority did have prior arrests or convictions with that. Now, you know, it's like if they're convicted, they should have been removed. But, you know, the reality was Biden wasn't really removing people. And even the ones that did get removed, I mean, the illegal with Cayenne's son had been deported and then came back and was able to twice. And so, you know, it's just really, really. But the reality is it's just very important. The rule in the United States is not you can come on author illegally and you cannot be ever deported unless you commit a crime. If that were the case, a separate crime, then we would basically have no border. And so the immigration laws are what they are. They're being enforced, I think, by DHS in a way that the public has wanted to see for quite some time. And then us, you know, we're facilitating that. But, you know, the thing is, if Dave Kerner pulls someone over for speeding, not saying speeding's the equivalent to like a violent crime, because, you know, people speed, like, right? It's not something you necessarily, but sometimes they do. So pull over. And if the person doesn't speak English, doesn't have a driver's license, doesn't have insurance, well, his highway patrol, those troopers, you know, they're going to probably think that there's reasonable suspicion that this person's not here illegally. So then they can act. And why would you want, if someone's speeding, to put them back out on the street, then they run into someone, and then they leave the scene? They don't have insurance. You're not going to get paid for all this stuff. So that's a high number, 63% that have criminal interactions, either arrest or convictions. But I don't think it's targeted just for that. I think our view is, you know, you have a right to be here or not. You know, if I just showed up in France and just demanding all this stuff, they would laugh, right? You wouldn't be able to just go illegally and do it in almost any other country except the United States in recent years. And so I think the times they are a-changin', as someone once sang. I think they meant Canada, right? Who said that? Someone said that.
I was talking about our state of Florida northern border.
Okay, go ahead.
No. Yeah, so, what we have is we have interdiction stations at our northern border. And when you come through the northern border, if you're in a semi, a truck, trailer, anything of that nature, if you're hauling any type of food products, animal products, anything of that nature, you have to stop at those stations. We're building a station at 231 today, which comes in, I believe, through Alabama into the state of Florida. There's no interdiction station there, so it's very difficult for us to police that in the way that we would like to. There are at least 7 or 8 other arterial roads coming in from Georgia or through Alabama that's coming into the state that we do not have complete coverage on. We're working with our DOT partners to make sure that we're doing pullover lanes on those other areas. We're putting a permanent station in at 231. So by the end of this year, we fully expect to have full coverage of that northern border of the state of Florida coming into the state. The federal government handles the ports. So we will have a full blanket around the state, we hope, by the end of this year. And thanks to the legislature and the governor for giving us the resources to do that.
Well, thank you. This is important. It shows that us fighting for them. Blaze was in the legislature fighting for the legislation that's really let this come to fruition, and I think it's been very, very effective. So we're glad on that. We are also coming up. We're going to start the next legislative session for the state of Florida in a little bit more than a week's time, and you're going to hear me discuss a lot of the things that you've been hearing from me over recent weeks and months, including, of course, relief for homeowners with property taxes. You're also going to hear some announcements very soon on some good news on property insurance. So stay tuned for that. And I know Blaze has been working very hard to hold some of these folks accountable as well. So you're going to see that. But I think it's just, if you look, Florida, we've done better economically than just about any other state. Certainly for GDP growth, our economy's expanded more than any other state. Maybe Idaho's more, but we're right there. We've obviously had a lot of migration of income positive people who don't take any services but contribute to the economy, which makes our ability to do the property tax all the more better, because there's a lot of money flowing in this state. We got to give people relief. So we're going to work through that. And then some of the other issues that I know are important from law enforcement perspective. We want to make sure our corrections officers are taken care of, our highway patrol. We want to keep our momentum going on law enforcement. Want to make sure we're protecting parents and kids, especially from the AI. Some of the stuff that's happening is not good for young people, not good for families. And obviously, we don't want this to be supplanting human decision making in different avenues of life here in Florida. So there's a whole host of issues with that, but we're going to be but we'll have some good announcements this week leading up to that. And I think people will be really excited about some of the stuff that's on the agenda. So God bless everyone, and go Jags. We want to see them do well. I'm excited for everybody. Take care.
James.
Hey, yeah, let's get a date before we leave right now.
Yeah.